Anthony Fauci, the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, on Friday having to temper President Trump's remarks about the possibility of using an anti-malaria drug to treat coronavirus patients. Dr. Fauci gave a pair of frank answers over the weekend in which he addressed what seems to be his frequent need to push back against misleading or false claims by President Trump regarding the coronavirus pandemic. One was with the New York Times' Maureen Dowd, in which Fauci said, quote, "I've been telling the president things he doesn't want to hear. I have publicly had to say something different with what he states. It's a risky business, but that's my style. I say it the way it is, and if he's going to get pissed off, he's going to get pissed off. Thankfully, he is not, interestingly." Fauci tells Dowd, quote, "I don't want to embarrass him. I don't want to act like a tough guy, like I stood up to the president. I just want to get the facts out. And instead of saying you're wrong, all you need to do is continually talk about what the data and what the evidence is."
Well, and it's been quite a balance, Mika. It's been an important balance. And he is right. The president seems to grant him deference on medical issues, even if they disagree. Let's hope that continues. You know, though, he does keep going back to this malaria medicine. And there's an article in Bloomberg by Kristen Brown and Riley Griffin where they've been writing a series of articles in Bloomberg, and I follow this very closely, about how the president is depending on a study where there were 6 subjects and there's no scientist. I mean, people hope this medication works, but the president keeps talking about it over and over again, and there's no evidence that it is going to work. And there's a quote in this Bloomberg article that says, "This is like the captain of the ship taking the only lifeboat where passengers are forced to drown, because doctors have been getting a rush for this malaria medicine, which is also used to treat lupus and arthritis. And there's going to be a shortage of drugs for the areas where this actually does have an impact on improving people's lives, to an area where we just really don't. We have absolutely no clue what the impact will be.
As the coronavirus continues to spread across the U.S., some lawmakers are taking the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of their residents. Last Thursday, Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama issued statewide shutdowns of all beaches, child care facilities, dine-in restaurants, and bars in a bid to increase social distancing. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis issued a number of executive orders that included the closure of all movie theaters, auditoriums, bowling alleys, gyms, and beaches in Broward and Palm Beach counties. Yet, the Florida governor is under intense heat for not acting forcefully enough in his state. And in Mississippi, officials are pleading with Governor Tate Reeves to shut the beaches in their state. What are you doing?
This guy is unbelievable. He's said he has no intention of doing that, and he's asking people to pray for the people of Mississippi, and yet he's not going to help the people of Mississippi protect their state from the ravages of coronavirus. And this isn't like it's happening in Wuhan anymore.
Yeah.
Look at Louisiana right next to Mississippi, and look at the devastation that could sweep through that state.
And this, once again, is why, leaving it to the governors can be extremely chaotic. It can lead to a very inconsistent response. It's beyond me why there isn't a uniform national guidelines and national mobilization to deal with this. This is almost at the point of why, what would be motivating the president not to want to help people?
You can't have a patchwork solution, Mr. President, to a pandemic. There is
But he's got to know that,
There is no patchwork solution to a global pandemic, Mr. President. You have to take the steps that people were begging you to take 2 weeks ago. I understand you ignored the warnings from your intel community in January and February. I understand that you trusted President Xi and China. You said it in your tweets. I understand you messed up on testing. You said if you want a test, you can have a test. Well, Sick people still, weeks later, can't have that test. But you know what? You can start new today, right? Mm-hmm. We need you as a nation to start new today. America is hoping you will start new today and take the steps that you were asked to take 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Shut down this country for 2 weeks. It will look radically different on the other side of those 2 weeks. The economy can start moving again. But if you do a patchwork approach to a global pandemic, this economy will be ravaged for the next 6 to 9 months.
Joe, to your last point, a very close friend of ours who has lupus cannot get his lupus medication since Trump announced that it would help with COVID. It's on back order everywhere. Well, and so your point in real life to someone that we know and love dearly.
That's the President of the United States continuing to talk about this recklessly on the air when he has no idea whether it's going to work or not. And Dr. Fauci has warned him time and again. That's what this Bloomberg article says. It says it's like taking a lifeboat away from people and having them drown. And so our loved ones, your loved ones that have arthritis or that have lupus, or that have malaria, are not going to be able to be treated with this drug because the president's speculating about something he knows nothing about. Mr. President, do what you can do. Shut down the country for 2 weeks. You were asked 2 weeks ago to do it. If you did it 2 weeks ago, we'd already be on the other end of this. And the markets wouldn't be crashing today. Shut down the country for 2 weeks, Mr. President, because Ron DeSantis has proved in Florida you can't trust governors. The Mississippi governor has proved you can't trust governors. There is no patchwork solution to a global pandemic.
Well, you can't trust all the governors.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.